Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bill and Ray Show. I am out here in the torch shop to make another marble. Got a lot going on this week, so hopefully I've got things organized here. I'm going to try and do a little piece that harkens back to some family history. So I've got my coffee mug with my instructions if I forget what I'm doing. Hopefully we can get this off without a hitch. So one piece that I haven't made yet is a little green vine that I wanted to have in the background. And I've done this before. I probably got a piece of this laying around. But I'm going to use this experimental green. Just a little dab of it. And pull this out into just a little flat cane. And then when I apply it, I can do some sort of twisty waves. So just a little skinny piece to add a little color, a little texture into the background. So we'll just get a little bit of a gather here and flatten that out. And I got this end of this rod kind of pulled out. I actually kind of wish it wasn't, because I just want a blob of color here, but we'll just kind of condense this back. That green is bright. Okay, and hopefully I can push this out kind of thin, so we'll just drop this on here. Now this glass does have some compatibility issues inside a marble, but generally if it's very thin and very little, you can get away with this. Instead of, sometimes I would stripe on this other layer of clear, but I'm going to try and do this kind of as another gather. Okay, well, I haven't set the Red Max torch yet, so I'll get that up and running. I went a little overboard with that amount of glass. So just a little thin layer of color in between clear. Instead of twisting this out, just going to pull it out straight. Probably pretty thin. So get a handle on here. Reheat. Wait just a second and then just start pulling. Got a little uneven bubble there. Not an air bubble, but just a little blob. So that didn't pull all that pretty, but gives us something to work with. Okay, the next little project, I want to do another implosion on a bubble. So I've got a piece of prep here, tubing with a handle pulled on it, and I'm going to be using some UV reactive glass. So this stuff is like a pink UV reaction. Hopefully we can see that. This is Lucy. So I need to enlarge this bubble a bit, and then I'm going to draw just a real simple pattern. It's kind of a lot of work for one little central gizmo in the marble, but I'm not quite sure how else to do this. I think this is the best way to go at it. So I'll do this in kind of some consecutive steps. Get some heat built up in here and puff it out. Okay, well, if at first you don't succeed, try again, right? So I wanted just a hint of silver on there. Alright, now try again with our Lucy. I'm going to go a little farther out at the end there. And And then my dots I'm going to place out here farther apart. It's not very symmetrical, but I don't imagine that branding was all that symmetrical either. Just kind of melted in and get the whole larger bubble to condense down a little. And you can't see that in the flame there. Just cool off a sec. Dot bar dot. That was my grandfather's registered cattle branding mark. Couldn't tell you what year that was registered, patented, whatever the wording is, officially documented. It's the family brand. Okay, now kind of a delicate business to get some kind of a punty on here. Yep, if it wasn't shaky. Condensing down this edge. And we're just kind of compacting this into a little nugget here. Okay, then we've got our pattern. And that's what we're going to put into the core of our marble. Alright, well, let's see if we can move on and get this marble cranking. As is sometimes the case, kind of a messy start to this process. I'm a little distracted today, just trying to power through getting this marble done. It's a beautiful day though here. It's sunshine, deep blue sky, green fields. All the animals are happy around here. So we need a good chunk of glass to marry up to our bar dot pattern. I'm thinking about my uncles, my aunt, my mom. They've all passed away now, but such great memories of all of them. Our family ranch in Missoula, up on the south slope there. The ranch goes up onto Beanstone Mountain, and all that upper section is in a conservation easement, so it's protected against development. So they're kind of surrounded by development these days. It's still a great joy to me to see when I go up to town to Missoula and look up on the hills there and see a big swath of land that's protected. The original ranch was considered a short section. It was supposed to be a square mile, a little bit shy of a full square mile. Okay. We have our juggling act here. We want our applied centerpiece to be pretty hot, to retain its shape, and the receiving glass to be really hot. So we want our pattern piece to be able to press into that hot glass, and let that hot glass kind of flow around this edge. And once we've got that pattern kind of sealed in there, we can just hook that in. So I've already got at this point a bit of a taper. So I'm going to let this set up for a second. And I want to influence just kind of the outer edge. And then we can pull out this end gently. Define that starting cone. Now we're going to put down the green flat cane. A bit more gentle fire than that. And just kind of randomly laying this down and some twists and kinks in it. Alrighty. Pin these ends that are sticking up, kind of lighting up with the heat. And pin those down. Alright, we're going to do 2 layers of frit. We've got some blue-green, which I really like the effect of this color, just a little sprinkle of it. Get that piece pretty hot. Okay, put that glass away. I'm going to switch over to our other color, which is red. So we got the UV reactive glass is pink. And we'll have some red background kind of hiding in here. Again, just kind of a sprinkle, hopefully. Kind of run some highlights. Okay, once we've got that kind of settled in, I'm going to do some gold fume and then back it with some dark, I'm using dark amethyst today. And that will give some little glints of reflective gold fume in the backdrop. So in order for this gold to be reflective, it needs to be put on pretty heavy. Okay, now all our build up on the back side. What am I doing here? Pay attention. I need some of my dark amethyst. Not quite holding my breath, but practically. So this time, for some reason, I decided to just go in one run and not skip run that I most often do. But to get down here to the point, and the whole thing will get too hot, in my experience, doing a continuous run. So doing this kind of skip run, leaving a gap, you don't get the base quite as hot. And I'll kind of build up some more glass, particularly down here at this end, to seal off any light coming in. This glass is still translucent at this thickness, but okay, now underneath the filler in the background, or the back side basically, and I'll put some silver down. Alright. Okay, I need a sip of coffee here. It's stressing me out, man. So I'll try and grab a picture of my mom's trunk that she traveled off to college with, and it has the dot bar dot pattern on it with her last name Line, and it's kind of crossed out what the previous name was. We're not exactly sure, but we believe that trunk was handed down to her from her mother, and my grandmother, obviously, and Not sure if that's an older family name. It's been kind of obliterated or what. But it's a beautiful piece. It's in our living room. We enjoy it every day. We store a bunch of Christmas decorations in that trunk. It holds lots and lots of memories. So to any and all of you watching this video at this point, you can just take a moment to thank our mothers and fathers and grandparents and all those that came before us, give us this opportunity to have our life right now. I know for a lot of people it's a very challenging time. But life kind of always has got its challenges. And we can pass back to the grandparents in particular. It's kind of our main connection, or things that they did and experienced through the Great Depression and whatever. I know my grandparents were part of the Underground Railroad. And as a little kid, when I first heard that, I was like, they had a railroad that went underneath their house? It's like, that seemed really strange to me. Couldn't quite figure that one out. My dad, he served in World War II and didn't speak much about it, but he had some very interesting role to play. He was one of the very few that carried communications between the Allied bunker in London and personally delivered messages to Winston Churchill. And he would wait patiently, and if there was a reply to be sent back, he carried it back. He was staying in a high-rise hotel in downtown London. The building was hit twice by rockets or bombs. One time it was just hit in the corner, just a couple rooms down from where he was staying, and he managed to survive it all. but he didn't have a lot to share because his work was pretty confidential, and he was old school. It's like he didn't talk about this stuff. All I know is that he went through things that I've never had to experience, and I'm deeply grateful to have the home and family that we have, and be able to do glass work like this and share it to all of you. Keeps me out of the bars, as they say. I used to hang out in the bars, nightclubs and taverns and places I would haunt in the Seattle area. Alright, now I'm going to try and get this a little rounder. It's a pretty raggedy shape right now. A double there we don't need. A Vortex marble mug. You too can have one. Check the store below. And this marble will go up on eBay. See how it turns out. I've kind of been messing around doing auctions. I try and get an auction going every week, but it's not always the marble that I make. Because sometimes the marble that I make in these videos is, in my mind, turns out really well. I really like it. And the pricing sometimes is something I don't really want to give away at an auction where I may not get much money for it. Because I have little mouths to feed too, just like all the rest of us. We've got our own family to take care of, and I've been doing this for 33 years as my main income. All that time I've not worked for anyone else except for family, doing some construction or this and that for family. Okay, that's a little more roundish. I'll go with that. So when I'm trying to select my background colors, sometimes I just kind of come up with a bit of an odd combination. So we've got some butterscotch here to start with. So as I'm recording this, I'm hoping I can get this put up as one of my usual videos I put up on Sunday mornings, but we'll see. Got some stuff to do in between here and there. And hopefully we'll have some stories to tell next week. So this green color is Roswell. Yeah, and then another line of Unobtanium, one of my favorite colors to use on these backing patterns. Okie. These lines melted in. Alright, get out of the fire, step aside for a second. Make sure we're stable so we don't get droopy in our next phase. But we don't want to wait too long. We need some of that heat base to do this next operation. Yeah, that went pretty smooth. Alright, gotta focus on the heat here. Trying to multitask, but not doing a very good job. Okay, gonna funky up and start building up our front lens. That circumference expand, that division line between the color and the clear. we just need to add more material. So just kind of focus our heat on the solid rod, let it melt in. Use my cut rollers or constriction rollers or whatever you want to call them out here. And just kind of sharpen stainless steel rollers that cut through tubing a rod when it's hot. You can use these with tubing to get a hard score, and then as it cools down, snap it for a relatively clean break. Okay, tweezers, rip and tear. Try to gouge out a good bit of this clear in this area in the marble. This glass has been kind of tortured. And not quite like the rest of the glass. Then the rest of this on out is just trying to get that skim off that surface. Get my armrest over here. And then sometimes you lay down a bunch of crud from your tweezers. You gotta get that out of there. Okay, time to get round. Basically got everything done. We just need to convert this from a ice cream cone to a round shape. Now this step we can kind of look for anything we're going to miss. It needs to be torn off. A little impurity flecks or bubbles on the surface or something we can get rid of. But the things that are buried deeper inside the glass, there's not a lot you can do about it at this point. So, I'll do a little cleanup on that circumference. Okay, now it's time to transfer. I'm going to see any reaction with this much light and heat. Hopefully it retains some UV reactivity. So at this phase I don't do any aggressive knocking off of the puntey there, I'm just going to melt it off. We don't want to risk dropping this on the bench, having it roll into my lap. Been there, done that. Okay, this is a heat and gravity phase. I'll tip it up and throw down some heat. It's got to soak all the way through. Spin this fast to try and change that, encourage that shape to change a little faster. The things are kind of off center, out around off axis, and spinning fast. Kind of throw accentuate any lopsidedness sometimes. Do just a little bit of that. Okay, once we have kind of a ridiculous amount of heat in here, we're going to go into the marble mold. That moved it quite a bit. Getting there. I wasn't even sure I was going to try and do a marble today, but I thought I should at least give it a try. So this is kind of a tribute to my family's cattle brand, but also just to see how a minimalistic pattern with that implosion sort of technique with a bubble. Just kind of see what that does. So I had some other ideas of patterns. It's funny, I was contemplating a certain pattern, and then I don't know, somehow it just kind of translated. I thought, oh, I should just try the dot par dot, see how that goes. If this turns out anything interesting, that might be another kind of staple pattern. I might do quite a few of those in the future. Okay, now we'll do a heat to just do a plain polish. Alrighty. Now, in order, we work so hard to get that whole backside, the contour to the basic shape and diameter that we want, and we don't want to lose that. So at this phase, we cool down until we get that core down to a solid temperature, so this last punty, we won't be messing up the part that's already nice and round. I think the biggest mistake people make, and it's harder to do when the marble's this big with this size torch anyway, but with small marbles, the biggest problem people have getting them round is they're just too hot. You get the core temperature, excuse me, is kind of fluid, and you have no control. You need to get that rough shaping, let that core solidify, and when you go to reheat and shape again, you only want to heat enough to get that surface layer going. It actually takes longer to finish out a small marble sometimes because you have to spend a lot of time waiting for it to cool down. When people get impatient, they don't want to wait. I mean, there's such a thing as getting the whole thing done if you really know what you're doing with the marble mold and banging them out pretty quick. Well, the center point of my pattern is not, it's not on center, but that's okay. Okay, now we've got to tear out the spore and glass here. We don't want this messing into a nice optical face. So when your pattern is not on axis or perfectly aligned with your circumference, it can look kind of weird at this phase. So I'm trying to heat up a little bit back here towards the punchy to try and get it on an axis and ignore that it's not completely aligned with the circumference, the break line between color and clear. Because round is round, it doesn't care. Okay, one trip to the marble mold to get the general shaping. And we'll pause here before we get going in here and then just kind of confirm that we've got the full curvature we want. Looks pretty clean. So we'll just do a heat iron out any wrinkles. So we're going to call that good. Well, I also know with experience that in this type of style that clear moves easier and expands and contracts a little differently than the color. So they'll tend to, if you measure them with calipers, you'll see that from the face to the back is a little smaller than the diameter generally. So at this end phase, after that last heat, instead of rotating, but angled down a little bit, will help balance that out a little more. Okay. A heavy punchy there. We are looking good. Alrighty guys, thanks so much for hanging out once again. We hope you all enjoy your day, your weekend, whenever you're seeing this. Just gonna wait for a moment for that to cool down before we throw it in the kiln. We don't want to make a big bump on the end of it. And we're ready to go. Alright everybody, take care of yourselves, take care of everyone around you. Be kind. And we will see you all next time on another adventure, another day. Cheers.